G'day, this is the first installment. This is a GH2 and this is a bit of an installment on how to use a standard, what they call a inverter. This is just a standard inverter with a normal power plug and the attachment here for a car. So this is a 50mm lens and it's running on a GH2. And what we're doing is just showing you this pack here is the internal cord for the internal power pack, really. So that's the little cord there that goes onto that, and this then travels through. And it has an adapter which looks like that. I'll stick it on the ground, and then we've got a power cord that goes in there as well, and we've got a battery that looks like that, and then we've got this little adapter here which I made up. So you can get these adapters from any electrical shop. The middle one is positive. I've just got a black lead on it. It's a nice black lead, and then I've gone and stuck these nice looking attachment on it. So when you get the battery, which looks like this, you can then stick the black lead on to that side there, so it looks like that, and then this thing here then clips onto this side here, so that fits on there nicely. So then you have two of these attached, and the battery just sits like this on there. It's a lovely little 50mm lens on the GH2. It's a Panasonic with an adapter, so it's really a 100mm lens, and it's an f1.7, so that's why we get that nice tight cropping. So if I put it on the ground and then I zoom in on it, you'll get to see what it looks like there. So once you've got that, you can then put this thing in, plug it in. Okay, so that's a 12-volt power supply, just with those two things there connected. And then what happens next is we get our lead and we plug it into this box here. So if I just bring that over and just plug that in, you'll see that is what that looks like. Yeah, so that's the power lead plugged into the converter box, and at the end of this cable here is basically the battery which goes into the GH2. So go back over it again. We've got our normal battery and goes into an inverter, and then it comes out the power lead, and so when you plug that in, it then works. But we've got one little trick up our sleeves which will make this much more interesting. So that there is our battery tester. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this to wavy volts, 500, and we're going to throw it down the throat of this thing here, watching out for the sparks, and tell us what the result is. So it's 210 volts, 212 alternating current running through that. So that's what that looks like. I'm going to turn this back to 20, and that means, well, just so you can see what we're looking at, this is a voltmeter here, and I'll just bring it up so you can see what it shows. So that's for our voltmeter for the 12 volts. We're going to test the 12-volt battery there on 20, so it's under that, that's normal volts. And what we did is we stuck it on the wavy one, which is the alternating current, and that's 500. So we knew that it was going to be close to 240 volts. So we're now up to this one. So when my chuck And onto this battery over here, we'll be able to get a power reading. So what I might do is I'll just put this next to it here, which you can read, and then I'll touch on these little terminals. Just bring them into focus. There, one there and one there, and it reads 12.08. So that 12.08 is the battery that runs through that. And then when I plug this in to here, right, so that's now plugged in. So that's plugged into that. As you can see, we'll be able to test the lead over here. So move our battery tester, and we need to have, it's 8.4, so what we're looking for is 8.4 volts. So we've got our little battery that we'll put across the pins, and I'll just focus in so you can see. And we'll just put them here and on there, and that gives us a reading which you can't quite see because it's off camera, but I'll just zoom it in for you. So what's that voltage read? 8.77 volts, which is just below the 9 and it's above the 8.4, so it's a nice tidy reading. Now that battery today, I ran it for a good 2.5 hours, and it was 12.8 volts, and it's fallen down to what did we say? I'll just check it again. It's fallen down to 12.3, so we've lost 0.5 of a volt in today's activities. But I just wired that up today because with the GH2, when it's recording, the GH2, if it's turned off by the mains, when it's doing a 3-hour recording, for example, it'll lose all of that footage for some unknown reason. So if there was a power cut today when I was doing the filming job, I didn't want to lose it. And the battery that I put in would last for 2 hours, but I didn't want a battery to go flat after 1.5 and lose all the footage as well. So that's why I put this battery here, and if you can just see on the top there, it's got 7 amp hours, so it's a 7 amp hour battery. And we do have other little connectors in here which we can plug in to this. So I'll just unplug that, and when I say unplug it, you haven't seen what I've just unplugged. So I just took the plug out of here from here, and what I can do is I can plug in the battery charger that's currently in this battery, in this GH2, and that battery through that will then charge. Now the other day I did a test with the amps running through it, and it uses about 0.35 amps just to run that, just to run the inverter. And when you put the battery charger on or plug this camera in, because I've run the camera through that lead, you actually get to have maybe 0.6, highest probably 0.9, or just under 1 amp. So that battery technically would last for 7 hours, but if it's running at half that speed, 14 hours. So it's a great little standby, and it fits in that my bag over here, which is my camera bag, and everything works out good. So in my little camera bag I just put these here, and that just goes in there, and I've also got my attachment which I stick in here as well for external, and I put my power lead in there. Right, so that's that. So going back to this, just dismantling this, the easiest way to do it is just to unplug that, and that turns the power thing off. And these little things just if you've got them focused there on that, they just unplug. So you can just see them unplugging like this and then unplugging like this. So I'll just do a zoom in just so you can see what's involved. I soldered the wire today, and rather than soldering it all together, I thought I'd use these little joiners. So with a screwdriver you can unscrew them, and these little things in the end, they actually had a crimp on the end of it which you can actually crimp onto a wire or solder it on, but I thought it was better to screw it in this end and screw it onto the wire, and then the same on this end through the little joiner and screw it into here, which has another joiner, so that just plugs in, and then that fits onto the two little terminals that the battery has. So I'll charge that battery up, and that should all be good. So there you go, that's my little tutorial. I keep a little amp meter in my camera bag over here, because I find that when you're out and about, it's handy to test batteries if you're using a wireless mic or whatever, and it's also quite good so you know when you want it around the house and you want to use it, you just go and grab your camera bag. So it's got a little screwdriver set in here, as well as all my little bits and pieces, and this thing just plugs in and fits down the side like that, so it's out of the way and it doesn't get in the way. This battery just fits in there. You see how that fits in there? So the battery just fits in the side there, and then I just put this inverter on top of it, and then just pop that into there like that. And so when I close the top down and then zip up the sides, we've got our lenses, the camera just fits in the top there. The rest of it, I've got two cords for that. I was looking for that other cord before, and so that's the. It's quite heavy when I say heavy, but just for transporting. But basically, I can go out on the road with this camera bag, and I can recharge my batteries on the road, and I can do everything I want. Change my lenses, carry my camera on my backpack, have my two arms free, and I'm available. I've got 4 lenses in there, varying sizes. You can get out to, well, what's that, 400 times 4 is 1600 times 2.6, so 4000 millimeters out, and then I've got a little 50 millimeter lens here. So that's all good. And I just made this little video up just to show you how to make a battery pack up for the GH2, and I'm quite enjoying my GH2. The sensor and the way it films is still up with picture quality of the GH4 and the GH3, and it's better than the bigger sensor than the GH1, but the GH1 still does a good video, 1080p at 24 frames a second. So I'm enjoying my GH2, and as a vintage motorcycle guy, I quite like the idea of using a vintage mirrorless camera which came out in October. So we're in September now, September, October. A couple more months it'll be 5 years old, and it's still able to pull with the latest ones coming out. It's getting left behind by the 4K, however a 550i, because we're PAL in New Zealand, instead of 60i with NTSC for America, so we're still able to pull just as much a good picture as, and put it up on YouTube HD in 5 years, so it's really done well. The ISO on this is 2000, and it's a 50mm lens, 1.7 pentax with an inverter. It's on aperture priority, and it's on high res, and I suppose that's all there really is to it. Okay, have a good night. Thanks very much. Right out.